So we described what public goods are, the characteristics of public goods, that they're non-rival and non-excludable. So now we want to talk about, so what, right? So what is it about these goods that make the markets, when they're left to their own devices, not be efficient? And so that's the first thing. What is the problem? The next thing, if this is on our list of reasons for government intervention, is what can the government do, if anything, to make it better? So now we know what public goods are, and so the question is, what is the problem? So we're saying, let's say we have a good where we know that the marginal benefit to society is greater than the cost of producing it. Mosquito control was an example I was using. Or I live along a waterway here, and it was full of hyacinth and stuff like that, and it needed to be dredged and all hyacinth taken out. And the total benefit to everyone in that society along our levee, or think about mosquito control or national defense or anything, a situation where the total benefit to everybody is greater than what it would cost to produce. So in that sense, it would be efficient. A market would produce it, right? If it's worth more than it costs to make, you leave the market alone and it makes it. That's how it usually works, right? And so let's think about a good where the benefit is greater than the cost. It ought to be produced. It's worth more than it costs to make. Resources ought to be allocated here. The problem is, if it's produced, everyone gets to use it. If we clear out that waterway, everyone along the levee gets to use the waterway. If you kill the mosquitoes, everyone gets to be free of mosquitoes, right? And you can't stop them from getting that benefit, the same benefit as you, even if they don't pay for it, right? So if one family along the levee doesn't pay, they can still go up and down the waterway. They get the same benefit. If somebody doesn't pay for mosquito control, they get the same dead mosquitoes, and they didn't have to pay anything for it. So even though it's worth more to people in total than it costs to make, the thing is, it is what we call the free rider problem. The free rider problem says, as it kind of sounds, if I can get it without paying for it, why do I want to pay, right? People take action as long as the benefits are greater than the cost. They're like, I could get a benefit from this and not incur any cost. If I think enough other people are going to chip in, I could not pay for it, and the good would still be produced. And unfortunately, for the provision of public goods, that happens a lot, right? It's worth more to people than it costs to make. So if everyone just chipped in what it was worth to them, we would make it, because it's worth more to people than it costs to make. But the marginal cost may be greater than people's willingness to pay voluntarily. So the marginal benefit to society, you can think of this as the true willingness to pay. What it's truly worth to people is more than what it costs to make, but what they're willing to pony up to provide the good is less than what it costs to make. And so if we just rely on markets to make it, no one's going to step up and produce it, because they're not going to get enough people to chip in to pay for it to cover the costs. And so that is why the nature of public goods, that everyone can consume it whether or not they pay for it, makes it very difficult for private markets to provide. Not entirely impossible. We dredged the levee here. But it does make it very difficult, because there is incentive to free ride. How to combat the free rider problem? What can you do about it? Well, in the absence of government intervention, you could still I'll say it this way. You could appeal to people's conscience and or public shaming, depending on which way you want to approach it. You could say, you need to contribute to this good. It's in everybody's best interest. You should contribute. It'll be really good if you contribute. You're going to benefit. It's only fair if you contribute. Do that. It's much like the public radio appeals it seems like every few months that you hear, if you listen to public radio, don't be a free rider. You're getting the benefit. Come on, chip in. You're getting the benefit. So there's a lot of that going on. Or you could say, I'm thinking about the dredging the levee here, that somebody that was in charge of putting this all together put a note in everybody's mailbox, well, not the mailbox, on the door, saying, here are all the houses, and I've highlighted the people that haven't paid, so that everyone's neighbors would know exactly who had paid and who hadn't paid. I don't know if that worked or if that just pissed people off. We had already contributed. We didn't want to be a free rider, but so you can encourage people to contribute. You can get people to contribute. You can provide public goods in the private market, but it's much less likely. It's particularly less likely as markets get bigger. So it might be possible to get enough money to dredge a levee that goes past 60 houses, but it's going to be a lot harder to get everyone to chip in what national defense is worth to them, right? Imagine if the government just said at the end of every year, just send me a check for what national defense is worth. I don't think we would get the money we would need even for a rudimentary defense force. So we can try this, and it sometimes works. But the other thing that the government can do is tax people, right? You don't want to pay voluntarily, so we'll just charge you. We know, we've done the studies, we know the benefit to society is greater than the cost. This good should be provided. So in order to provide it, we are going to tax people enough money, and then we will provide the good. Because if we just let you do it voluntarily, you're not going to pony up enough. And so we will tax you, and then we can provide the good. And so this is why in a lot of cases when, with public goods, you see, or even goods that aren't entirely public but have some public goods characteristics, you do see government provision of these goods, because if you leave it to the free market, there's going to be too many free riders and you're not going to get it produced. But the government can make you pay. Now, there still could be a lot of disagreement over whether or not the benefit to society really is greater than the marginal cost, and what you value. You may not have a very high value. You may say, I don't want society paying, but that's where all of our discussions and debates and disagreements come up about what we value and what we don't value. This is just to sort of say there are some goods that have these characteristics where it may actually make sense for the government to intervene. The government can actually get closer to the efficient provision of the good than if we leave the market to its own devices.